And Merry Christmas, everybody. As I said, I had one or two videos planned, particularly because Christmas this year starts off the week of who would win. And we'd start off this merry of holidays with a suggestion from Alan Perkin. Who would win a fight? Kenpachi Zaraki from the anime slash manga Bleach versus Escanor from the anime slash manga Seven Deadly Sins. Now, between the two of these guys, I know more about Bleach by far than I do the Seven Deadly Sins, so I did have to go and look up Escanor. Escanor, though, is insanely powerful in his own right. So, Escanor, let's start with him first, because he's the one I'm probably going to have to really be the most specific about. Well, to the extent that he's the one I had to look up feats for. Escanor is a member of the Seven Deadly Sins, who are essentially like soldiers of the kingdom they like serve in to some degree. They all have what is known as a grace in the form of a sin. Escanor is the sin of pride. He is the lion of pride, to be precise, and his gift is called sunshine. Escanor is the strongest human on the planet because his abilities are tied with the sun itself, the rising and setting of it. When the sun is starting to set, his powers are waning. When it's not out, he is at his weakest and his most frail form, even being more frail than a normal human. But the moment the sun starts to rise, the moment dawn hits, his powers just continue to increase exponentially until they hit high noon. And when they hit high noon, for a minute, they are at their peak. His power is thus that characters like the Demon King himself, even, Milidus, who is the sin of, I think he's the sin of wrath, if I'm not mistaken, who is technically the strongest member of the sins. You can't match this guy. Even in one of his stronger modes, Meldus in assault mode, got one shot by a full-powered Escanor easily. He is considered the strongest human. His strength is such that he, even with all these insane muscles, his speed is enhanced, his durability is enhanced to the point where he can take shots from city busters without any concern whatsoever, or like without a scratch on him. He continues to grow. He can literally cut individuals who with insane durability with no issue whatsoever. The problem is just even looking up. I tried to look up Escanor actual feats of strength that display his actual abilities, and there isn't there really isn't much of much to say about that. The closest feats we have here, at least from what I can find here, is, and we're just let's see here. Can I find anything here? Uh, Alliance and Pride. Yeah, I don't. I don't have anything that really gives anything except for the fact that he took on Meldus in his assault mode. But he does have feats beyond just pure, straight physical strength, even though his physical strength is insane. And his speed feats are actually pretty insane, pretty solid as well. And his durability is near second to none. The man survived. Here's a good feat: an ability where a vampire king literally created a darkness bubble. That anything about the bubble had its fresh flesh shredded off, just gone. And he literally had it encase him, and he just repelled it. And he said, "Oh yes, no, the darkness is afraid of me." So yeah, it's not gonna work. Sorry. He is depicted levels of strength on near continental, if not maybe low planetary level. He has demonstrated the ability to swing his axe, his divine treasured axe, with such force that it will just level large buildings, small mountains without any real issue whatsoever. Uh, he's also capable of emitting mass amounts of heat that are capable of eliminating like the undead, melt armor just by being around him. One strike of his sword was able to just evaporate an entire lake when he was exuding this heat, hence sunshine. When he is at his peak, he is actually the strongest of the sins, but only for a minute, because high noon only lasts for a minute. Now, he can in fact extend this limitation for the one, which is what it's called, beyond its 1 minute limitation. However, he cannot do that without the expense of his life force and magical energy. Continually extending the one will shorten his lifespan and ultimately kill him. Still, he is an immensely powerful warrior. The problem in any fight you're dealing with Escanor is the fact that yes, he can extend the one out, but it still has the same issue as if he's not extending the power of the one out, where he's got time limit. He can only, in a battle of attrition, he loses. If you've got someone who's equal in durability to him or greater in durability to him, he will lose that fight due to the fact that, okay, that's not to say he'll lose the fight, but he's at a disadvantage because their powers won't run out after a certain point. His will. And even if he's extending his full power out past this limitation, he's still doing it at the expense of his life force, meaning he is ultimately going to die. So with that being said, Kenpachi Zaraki is the current captain of the 11th Division of the Gotei 13 Court Guard squads. He is the master of just combat. The title of Kenpachi is the strongest Shinigami. And Kenpachi actually does very much live up to that title. Now, the strongest version of Kenpachi we technically have would be the Can't Fear Your Own World Kenpachi, because we actually don't know how much stronger Kenpachi is between the 9.5 years since the end of that novel and the 9.5 years to the end of the series, which is the Hell Arc. We have no idea how much stronger Kenpachi has gotten since then. Kenpachi, even before he had his limitations unlocked, was a monster of a character. He could literally fight 2 captains who, with their Bankais released, and beat one pretty soundly and forced the other to retreat. Whether or not he was forcing Komamura to retreat or Komamura was just retreating because he, this was not his real fight to take, whatever you want to call it. He still made them flee, or made Komamura flee and beat Tozen outright. And this was at his probably weakest point in the series. As the series progressed, we kept seeing him do more and more crazy feats. He is a master of the sword. He is a monster in terms of his energy output. We don't really have a good way to calc Ryatsu output. Like in Seven Deadly Sins, there is in fact a magical power level output numbers. So we actually can gauge that. We cannot gauge really Ryatsu very well in Bleach, except for versal terms like planetary, multiversal, whatever. We can gauge them on those levels, but in terms of actual output, it's very hard to gauge. What we do know though is that Ryatsu can translate into physical strength, your energy-based attack, how you affect the world around you. And we know for a fact that Kenpachi probably is the most Ryatsu of anyone in the Gotei 13 by a large amount. The only ones who would probably come close to him in terms of the current Gotei 13 would be probably Kiraku, because he's the oldest and he is the head captain, so his Ryatsu is immense. Or maybe one of the visors with their masks on, and even that's probably not true. Byakuya would be a good third or secondary option. However, it is pretty much stated for a fact that Kenpachi is arguably not stated as true fact, but Kiraku even says that Kenpachi is the big gun in the fight when they're going to fight Tokinada and Hikone and Can't Fear Your Own World. He states that very clearly, which very much implies that even though Kiraku is the captain commander and in some ways is stronger than Kenpachi in terms of raw Ryatsu, physical power and all that, is most likely the strongest captain of the Gotei 13 at this point. Kenpachi is so powerful that just his presence is enough to scare the crap out of very powerful captain level characters. His Ryatsu is so intense that he will literally affect the very environment around him. He can literally cut a building in half from a distance. He's not just immense in terms of physicality, in terms of his physical strength, where he lifted a man the size of a skyscraper and then some with his bare and just threw him. A guy who was so large that if he fell from where he was, he would actually destroy the Soul Society, or at least the Seirete itself, which means that man was the size of the meteor he probably destroyed. And Kenpachi lifted him barehanded. And even after his Bankai faded, he literally just stuck his fingers in the man's foot and flipped him one-armed. His physical strength is matched by his durability, where the man can just keep. First off, it's hard to damage him in general, but even if you damage him, he normally laughs it the hell off. The man has lost his arm, shrugged it off, ripped it off, and be like, yeah, fix this up. I'm gonna fight again. He's literally taken multiple gashes, holes to the gut, chopped a cut to the neck, bleeding out, and he just said, huh, okay, time to get serious. And the man just won't go down. It is near impossible. You need to be someone of a vastly superior strength to Kenpachi to actually put him down. Such as the fake Yuhawa, which was about 80, I think they said 80% or 70% of Yuhawa's actual strength. Kubo recently brought that up. Or someone like Unohana initially, who was really overwhelming Kenpachi because he was just not at the level of strength he needed to be. Or you need to have a ability that's tailored to kind of stopping someone like Kenpachi, such as the compulsionary that Pranida had, where he was able to inject his nerves into something and control and manipulate that thing. That was an ability that was a direct that was not the type of opponent Kenpachi could fight. But and even against someone like, say, Gerard, who kept getting back up and stronger, Kenpachi for a while kept overwhelming him. Kenpachi has I'm starting over my words here. Kenpachi has brilliant battle instincts, able to pinpoint an opponent's weakness when he's really deciding to do that. He correctly pointed out the weakness of Tozen's Bankai, where all of his senses minus touch were cut off. He correctly deduced Kaname, Tozen, and Gin being the two captains afraid of dying. He was able to figure out how to cut through Niwatora's iron hard Hiaru, which is basically iron skin. And he's just, when he wants to be, he's an insanely intelligent battler. He's not dumb. It's just he's not like a scientific genius. He's a battle genius. Beyond that, though, he also has his Zanpakuto, Nozarashi, which takes the form of a giant frickin' war cleaver axe, which was able to literally blow up an extinction-level event meteor with one swing. Now, in the anime, we do see he used two hands to do it, but still. And this was with his Ryatsu sealed. As we know, he wears an eye patch to keep, I believe it's about 80% of his full power in check. I believe they say that's the amount his eye patch keeps in check. So at 1/5 of his power in Shikai, he blew up an extinction-level meteor. Now, he also allegedly cut through the fabric of space itself in the Galaxy Room, but it is contested a little bit about what happened there. It's believed that he might have actually caught Grimmy off guard when he did that before the hole to the Galaxy Room actually closed. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but even if that is the case, we then see him actually just snap that dimension as he's coming back out of the dimension. Should note, he was durable enough to survive the vacuum of space itself. So blood was boiling and freezing. He had internal damage. And he just it's like, yeah, that wasn't fun. And he just kind of brushed that off. It was then the explosion hit, and he was actually in pretty bad shape after that for the first time in a while. But Nozarashi is insanely powerful. And then you go into his Bankai, which is currently unnamed, where he basically becomes a Kishin, a battle-crazed Oni of death and destruction, where he is so powerful that this enhanced Gerard Valkyrie, who had been growing stronger throughout the entirety of the fight, it was bitch smacking eye patch off Shikai Zaraki around after a while. He quickly grabbed the punch that was being thrown at him by this giant. Here's Kenpachi, my finger, and here's the giant hand. And Kenpachi just grabs it with his teeth, stops it dead in its tracks, and just ripped it off in an instant. He literally brought his sword down and cut him from a distance. He barely touched him, and he just sliced through his shield and sliced through the front of his face. Gerard went falling, got his wings up, and Kenpachi again slashed him so powerfully and so swiftly that he actually cut him from a distance, straight in half. Now, the only downside was Kenpachi's Bankai was so new at that point that the power broke his body the more that was trying to go in there. It was not even the full max power of his Bankai. So if whenever we get the Hell Arc and we see Kenpachi truly as he is, as the true Kenpachi with a more mastered Bankai, oh my god, are we as fans going to jizz our pants? Jizz whatever you, or respective bodily function in our pants. And so, Kenpachi Zaraki is an absolute beast. So the question is, who wins in the fight? Escanor's peak is at noon, and he can extend his peak past the 1 minute limit, but at the expense of his life force and magical energy. Kenpachi doesn't have that restriction. Also, should note that both these guys actually have something that restricts their power. Escanor's glasses are specially made to kind of restrict his power during the day, so he can just kind of go whoop and just poof. So I can see where that matchup also comes from. Let's get it out of the way right now. We're really going to be looking at. Let's look at the one, Escanor, first and foremost, because that's really where this fight is going to come down to. If in my opinion, Escanor's the one form can beat Kenpachi, then we can actually look more at the lesser forms of Escanor. But this all hinges on whether or not this version of Escanor can in fact beat Kenpachi. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think that's the case. Let's assume that they had been duking it out prior for a while. Kenpachi's someone who likes to let the fight go on, and because of his sin of pride, Escanor's kind of someone who isn't usually challenged, so he'd actually be having a lot of fun. His axe, should be noted, is also weighed very heavily on the head of the axe, but he can wield it with one hand, no problem, because of just how strong he is. Both these guys are masters of their own respective blade, but Kenpachi's sword is arguably the faster of the two, just because it's a sword. It's able to move a lot quicker. But the fact is, he can swing that just as easily as anyone could swing any other weapon. The question just simply comes down to, and it's an energy versus energy battle. Is the level of power that Escanor has at the one stronger than the amount of Ryatsu Kenpachi has? And I'm going to say right now, I don't think it is. Kenpachi, because like I said, while we don't have a good full gauge of Kenpachi's Ryatsu, like the level of power that is, we can gauge it because we do know it still translates into their abilities, their physical strength, whatnot. And with Shikai, with this eye patch on, Kenpachi destroyed an extinction level event meteor casually, and may have cut through the fabric of space itself, like a dimensional space. While Escanor is powerful, I could not find any feats that really were, and correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, that really were on that level of power. Escanor certainly is powerful, and can actually go toe to toe and even beat Assault Mode Melodus. But when we're talking about the high level tier Bleach characters, we are actually talking about individuals whose power is so great it affects the very fabric of the world they're in. Escanor's is a bit more localized. His abilities, especially when using the heat variation part of his sunshine, do seem to translate out into similar effects like Yamamoto has. But Yamamoto, his ability would literally burn down the entirety of the Soul Society itself just by passively existing. Escanor actually has to flex his power for those effects to happen. Like the swinging his axe with his power to evaporate a lake. Yamamoto would do that just by walking around and existing. Kenpachi, and this is a big key point of fact, that Kenpachi is stated to probably be stronger than at least early in his career Yamamoto, before he was at his true peak without a Zanpakuto, because he one-shotted being Yamamoto couldn't beat. With his eye patch off admittedly, but with no real difficulty. He one-shotted him. And that's an individual who literally had to be beaten by Ichibei, the guy who literally is kind of like the head of the Shinigami. And Kenpachi's Ryatsu was so great that it actually overrid the abilities of his Zanpakuto, Ichimonji. Which means you can put Kenpachi on the high Galaxy Versal level scaling at that point. If not, like low Universal, whatever, because of the way that Bleach's cosmology works. I mean, when one of the Zero members that isn't Ichibe's using their Bankai, they actually are literally, it can be felt throughout all the dimensions. You're talking about crossing realities. You're feeling it so powerful. And Kenpachi is arguably stronger than these individuals. Man, so okay, that might be a bold statement to say, but I'd actually argue that he probably is actually stronger than those individuals by the end of the series. By the end of the series, Kenpachi probably could beat most of the Zero Division. Ichibe is the one exception, and even that might be debatable. So if you're talking about an individual who, even at the lowest tier, we're talking about extinction level, planetary, star level, low galaxy level feats, versus an individual who I just couldn't find anything for Escanor in terms of anything beyond maybe like a low planetary at best. Then energy output, Kenpachi has the edge there. And therein lies a big problem for Escanor, is that if he can't really hurt Kenpachi much, and I'm not saying he couldn't hurt Kenpachi, don't misunderstand me. I think he does have the level of energy to hurt Kenpachi, especially with that axe. I just don't think he's going to be able to land a lethal blow most of the time. And Kenpachi, this would be Kenpachi who's not even going all out. If he takes off his eye patch at any point, Escanor is effed, because he is really just going to be extending out the fight as long as he can to try to hurt Kenpachi, and Kenpachi is going to be overwhelming him. In a battle of attrition, Kenpachi is one of those individuals you do not want to go up against, because the man can literally take nearly any damage you throw at him and just brush it off, and then deliver it back 1,000-fold in one swing. That is the type of person Kenpachi is. I know I am a Bleach fan but I know more about Bleach, and I'm a big fan of Bleach, so it might sound like I'm fanboying up Kenpachi. But legit, if I could have found a feat, and I looked up as many feats as I could for Escanor, a feat that looked to me like it would have been able to counter Kenpachi in any way, I would have done it. I would have definitely considered that for the fight, because I love me Kenpachi, but I've done verses with Kenpachi and he's lost. So I'm not blind by fandom in terms of who I think would win. Escanor will do his damnedest. He'll be throwing out fire. Kenpachi's going to be laughing. But if at any point he releases Nozarashi, and God forbid he releases his eye patch or his Bankai, Escanor is screwed. Like his Bankai alone, if Nozarashi is in fact capable of cutting the very fabric of dimensional space, then his Bankai, which has to be at minimum 5 to maximum 10 times more, or even greater if you train harder, then there's no way Escanor is surviving a shot from that Bankai at all. Like, he will be chopped down in an instant. But again, this is going by the information I can find for Seven Deadly Sins and the information I know about Bleach. If I could have found, if someone knows greater feats for Escanor, please let me know in the comments below. Let me know, please. But as it stands right now, I got to go with my boy Kenny. I think this would be a really cool fight for Death Battle, actually, because they are very similar in terms of, they are kind of like the peak of their universes, at least in terms of like their respective peers. They have abilities that seal their powers away. They do certain things to reach their max potential. This actually, first off, I want to see Kenpachi on a Death Battle regardless. I want more Bleach, and I want Bleach to get the proper respect on that. I love Death Battle to death, but they have not done a good job of representing Bleach. They have not. Now I'm talking about the sheer amount of verses. I'm talking about how they have represented the universe on Death Battle. But if proper research could actually be done, which I think that's the big problem, it's a lack of understanding of the cosmology of Bleach, then I would be so down to see Kenpachi show up in a Death Battle. I'd be happy to see any other Bleach character show up in Death Battle, absolutely. I digress, though. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys for the next one. Have a good day.